What's up everybody, Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews here, and I just got back from CES 2025, and I am so excited to tell you about some of the gaming handheld things that I saw there this year. There's some really cool stuff that's headed our way in 2025, so let's check it out. So one thing I will say really quick is that CES is so spread out across Las Vegas that I was not able to hit every single place that I wanted to. For instance, Lenovo had two different areas to take a look at their gaming handhelds, and I only got to look at their Windows-based ones at the AMD booth. So I'll talk about that more in just a little bit, but today we're gonna start off with the MSI booth. They've got some really cool stuff going on with their new claws. They have their Claw 7 AI Plus and then their Claw 8 AI Plus, which is bigger than the Steam Deck, which is really exciting if you're like me and you've got big hands. So let's dive in and take a look at MSI's booth before we do anything else. So first up, we have the new MSI Claw 7 AI Plus. Now, this thing comes with an Intel Core Ultra 7 processor, native Windows 11 Home, and an Intel Arc GPU. Now, this one has a 7-inch full HD screen with 1920 by 1200 resolution, which a lot of the handhelds on this list you're going to see today have, and it has which gives it a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It is a touchscreen IPS panel that has 120 Hz refresh rate. Now, from what I saw on the spec sheet listed next to the device, I only saw that it comes with 32 gigs of RAM, so I'm not sure if there's memory options on this, if there's lower or higher, because all of the other handhelds that I came across had different options, so that's what this one had. But it also has two Thunderbolt 4 ports with up to 40 gigabytes per second transfer speeds, which gives you a really great mini PC experience as well, and then has Hall effect joysticks and triggers. So this is going to be the cheaper option from MSI, and I gotta say, just playing Cyberpunk on this thing, it handled it really well. It was chopping through this game like it was nothing. The lighting looked fantastic, and I did end up checking the resolution and the settings, and they did have it set to about medium settings, so they were obviously trying to showcase the power of the device without people actually digging into the settings. But once I looked into it, you know, it really didn't matter to me because it looked great on a very small condensed screen like this. I mean, just moving around, there was no latency to it, there was no artifacts. I mean, it really just powered through Cyberpunk, which is not an easy game to showcase on a mobile device. And we'll also showcase the next device, the 8, here in a minute, but this 7 is already a good step in the right direction, and I think it's a good start to the gaming handheld lineup. Now here is the big kahuna that I was so excited to check out. This is the Claw 8 AI Plus, and honestly it's the exact same internals as the 7, except it has an 8-inch screen, and you can definitely feel it. Now that means it has the same resolution stretched across a slightly larger display, so the 7 actually looks a little bit better, but this thing is bigger than the Steam Deck, and I love it for big hands. It has all of the inputs you need up top with 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. It has the back paddles right there, and it just feels so good. You can see that plastic ribbed body on the back. It's ribbed for your pleasure for sure, because it feels really good to hold. This device feels meaty in your hands, and boy does it feel powerful. Now it only comes in the one color of that army green, or that kind of light tannish green, which, you know, I'm not personally the biggest fan of. I think it's unique on the market, but I definitely look forward to other color options that they're going to come out with. But everything about this device screamed quality. I mean, from the Hall effect joysticks and triggers and bumpers, how good the D-pad felt and how springy it was, and the buttons, everything about it just felt really good, and I really like it. I think this is going to be a clear front runner in the gaming handheld community, and it's going to be one that I think people are going to be going after pretty often. Now, for some reason, they had it locked down, so I couldn't test out Cyberpunk like the 7 had, or any of the really big AAA games. The only one that would let you play on it for some reason was the new Sonic game that just came out. And I will say that it played amazingly well. Like, it was beautiful on this screen, and it ran really well. I mean, it's so buttery smooth on this Claw 8 that I really couldn't find any complaints based off the experience that I had with it, but it wasn't like a really true testing scenario where I'm seeing how much power you can actually get out of it. Now this one, they did not scale the graphics back in the settings, which was nice to see. It was cutting right through it like it was nothing. So I think this 8 is going to be one that is going to be a front runner in the marketplace, like I said. So definitely excited to see how it does this year in 2025. Okay, so those are the MSI Claws, and I gotta say, those are the ones that I felt like out of all the gaming handhelds were the most complete package that I saw. You'll see a couple others on this list where that statement makes sense, but I really like what MSI brought to the table. Their entire booth was just phenomenal. I mean, they had this Dragon laptop thing that looked really cool. They had all these pre-builds that were amazing. Just an excellent booth. But next we're going to dive into Lenovo's updated gaming handhelds because they've got some really cool stuff, including a tablet that is more powerful than your Xbox. So starting out, we're going to go with the Lenovo Legion Go S and then the Legion Go version 2. So let's check them out. Now, Lenovo actually had 4 total devices to check out, but at the AMD booth, they only had the Windows-based operating system ones, not the Steam OS ones. So I can't really talk too much about those. They are going to be cheaper because some people don't want to just game on Steam OS, but this was one of their Windows operating system ones, and this is the Lenovo Legion S. It has an 8-inch display with a 1920 by 1200 resolution, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, and 120 Hertz display. Now, it comes in 2 configurations. You can either get the lower end 512 gigabyte SSD with 16 gigabytes of RAM, or they have the 1 terabyte SSD that comes in 32 gigabytes of RAM, but they are both swappable for the 2242 SSD sizes, so you can upgrade storage if you need to. Now, I really like the ergonomics of the Legion S. It didn't have quite the controller grip that I was wanting. It was nice and rounded with the single macro buttons on the back there, and it also had the trigger locks with 3 different settings, which was a really nice touch. Thank you, Lenovo, for doing that. However, it is not quite as comfortable as the version 2 of the Legion Go that we'll look at in just a little bit, which is even bigger. So stay tuned, we'll check that out in just a second. But the Legion Go S is really a fantastic pickup, but the prices are going to vary dramatically, and I think they might be a bit much for what you're getting. So for the Windows-based versions, it's going to be between $600 to $700, depending on if you get the lower end or the higher end. And if you get the Steam OS versions, right now it's looking like between $500 to $600 with the same specs. You're just having to sacrifice only using Steam OS, which for me, that is not a sacrifice. I love Steam OS. It's the reason that I pick up my Steam Deck over my Ally 10 out of 10 times. So I'm really excited to see Steam OS go to another handheld. Lenovo is the first and only other company that's doing it so far, but I think that's going to catch fire in the handheld gaming industry, and we'll see more of that coming our way. But overall, this is a really excellent device that does not have the removable controllers. So if you just want something that's going to be just a regular old big chunky handheld gaming machine that's super powerful, I think this is going to be a great option for you, even though I didn't get to actually test it gaming. Now, this device is the one that I was really excited to check out, and Lenovo's not calling it the Legion Go 2, but the Legion Go version 2. Now, this is a chunky boy right here. You can see how thick it is. It's the one that has the removable Joy-Cons on the side, and it even has a touchpad on the side so you can have mouse movement just like the Steam Deck. Now, this screen is an 8.8-inch OLED screen, which is really, really nice, but it has a 1920 by 1200 resolution, so they actually dropped the resolution a little bit, and sometimes that sucks to see. However, I think it's not a huge loss on a gaming handheld system because you're not really going to notice that change, but it will give you more battery life. Now, there's also going to be 2 options with different chipsets for this one and for the S. This one will have the AMD Ryzen Z2 Extreme processor, which is one of the newer chips on the market, and then it also has a built-in Windows 11 operating system and an integrated Radeon graphics card. I didn't know quite the specs on that because I didn't dive into it. Unfortunately, it only comes in either 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes of memory, but it has a 1 terabyte SSD that I am assuming is the 2280 M.2, so you can upgrade it, but they did not confirm. And it also actually has a micro SD card reader on it, so that's the internals for it. But this is the really killer device about the Lenovo Legion Go series, are these removable Joy-Cons. They are the only ones on the market that have them where they can function away from the device, and these things are really, really comfortable. And what's crazy about it is you can see right there, they have 4 very large macro buttons, 2 on the back, 2 on the sides, and not once did it feel like my hands were brushing against them or unnecessarily pressing them while I was playing. They're positioned a little weird on the side, and as you can see, the left hand doesn't quite have the same button layout, but it's because that right Joy-Con you can actually use as a mouse, either a vertical mouse, as you can see the little scroll wheel on the side there, or there's a couple different configurations you can use with it. But the size of these Joy-Cons are what really drew me in to this version 2 of the Legion Go, because it's just so comfortable for larger hands like mine, and I have some of the larger hands on the market. I love the joysticks and the buttons. Everything felt very premium, and I never got to hold the Legion Go version 1, unfortunately, so I can't really compare it from that regard, but I can say from just a quality perspective, this one feels great. It is going to be a heavy machine, so it may not be the easiest to travel with because it is gigantic, but I absolutely just love how it looks, how it felt, and just how durable this thing came across. So you can also turn these controllers sideways just like a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con and play it with an extra person depending on the game that it's playing. And there on the top you can see the ventilation fans, which are pretty hefty because it's pumping a lot of heat out of there due to the power that's inside of this device. On the bottom you should see USB-C as well as docking capabilities so that you can sit on the couch with the Joy-Cons and actually let this thing play through your TV. So this version 2 of the Legion Go is excellent. That screen is beautiful. The gameplay felt great. It didn't feel, I wouldn't say great actually. I think it felt solid, but there definitely needs to be some improved performance that it's probably going to come through software before it goes live. I think once that it hits the market, the final stage of it, I think it's going to be a really, really excellent device. Now, one quick thing I wanted to show you from the AMD room that is actually not a gaming handheld is this insane gaming tablet that they had on display there. So this thing uses the brand new Ryzen AI Max Plus 395 APU, which is now currently the most powerful APU in the world. It has 16 cores on it and up to 128 gigabytes of shared RAM on a system. Now, this thing can actually kill handheld gaming because if you can take power like this in a tablet that you can just bring a controller with, it's going to be really hard to beat that because a lot of people when they travel with handheld gaming systems, they like to bring a spare monitor so they have a larger screen and a controller. This would do all of that for you, and the representative was telling us that it actually can outpower your Xbox. So this thing is going to be the future of gaming. It does not have a release date. It didn't even have a model number, but they're estimating it to be around $2,000 when it comes out. But this is something where I am really, really excited for the future of gaming because the type of AAA gaming you can bring with you on the road and the way you just saw that footage playing means that gaming is about to really get nice in 2025. Okay, so as you can see, Lenovo's got some really cool stuff coming, and unfortunately, I was not able to check out the Steam operating versions of these devices. Those are supposed to come out like way later this year, maybe even the second half of this year, which is a bummer, but we'll take what we can get, right? As you know, I'm a big fan of Steam's operating system. It's why I prefer the Steam Deck over the Ally, and in the fact that it's cheaper, that's a win-win for me specifically, but I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Do you prefer having a dedicated operating system like Steam, or do you want the ability to customize it through Windows or Linux? Let me know. Now, next up is a company that I have been trying to partner with for a very long time, and I'm so glad I got to see them in person. They are called OneXPlayer, and the reason that I like them is because they originally had the largest screen on the market with these gaming controllers sticking off to the side. So this is not a travel-friendly thing at all. It is a really odd-looking device, but it's really cool-looking and it's really powerful. So they've got 3 devices that I was able to check out and play with. So let's get into them. Okay, so here we have one of OnexPlayer's brand new releases. I mean, this thing literally came out 3 hours before I got to their booth, so I was really excited to check it out. It's called their G1, and the specs are actually still on the Indiegogo page, so I will list that in the description down below. But this thing it's a hybrid laptop and handheld gaming console, and there exactly you can see how that works. It has a keyboard that comes right off the top and gives you access to the controllers and button layout below with a touchpad keyboard down below that. That's also moves the mouse around for you. Now this thing has an 8.8 inch 2560 by 1600 resolution screen with 144 hertz refresh rate, which is fantastic, but I wasn't able to actually do any gaming on the demo unit, so I really didn't get a chance to see just how pretty it could be. It has an AMD Ryzen 9 HX 370, but it can also be upgraded to the better model of the Radeon 890M. And then it has 64 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty insane for a device like this. And I found it hard to believe at first with not being able to actually test it myself. But when I show you their traditional OneXPlayer device here in a little bit and how well it ran Black Myth Wukong, you'll see how good that can actually be. Now you can see all of the cooling and venting on the back of this thing. It is a beast and it's very thick. It has the two USB-C ports, USB-A, mini HDMI output, and the auxiliary port there. And then you can see two triggers and the bumper buttons as well. Now this thing also has room for a full M.2 2280 SSD that you could upgrade pretty easily, and it has an internal 13,500 milliamp hour battery. So this thing is quite beastly to take with you to game with. It also has Wi-Fi 6E built in and a 2 megapixel webcam so that you can actually do conference calls if you need to. And there's also the micro SD card slot as well. And don't forget that the screen actually is touchscreen. Now, here's the thing about this keyboard. It is way too small for even the average person to truly enjoy using it. So while this is a hybrid laptop and handheld gaming device, it's really meant way more for gaming, not only just because of the specs, but also because you're not going to do anything more than type in a username and password or talk some trash online with that keyboard. But it does have its own built-in gyroscope as well, which contributes to the thickness of it. But overall, this is an incredible device that OneXPlayer has come out with, and I talked to them about sending one out for me to check out on the channel, which I hope that they do, because this is a really unique device and there wasn't anything else like it at CES, and I would love to bring it to you as my audience. Now this device is OneXPlayer's classic product that really kind of put them on the market. It's called the X1 Pro, and as you can see, it's just a giant screened handheld gaming device. Now what's really cool is that those controller parts are actually removable, kind of like Joy-Cons. This is definitely not a device that you can easily travel with. I just want it because it looks cool and it's actually quite powerful. It has an AMD Ryzen AI9 CPU and an AMD Radeon 890 GPU, and then it comes in either 32 gigabytes or up to 64 gigabytes of total LPDDR5 RAM. Now this thing truly does have those specs inside of it, and I could tell because as I'm playing Black Myth Wukong, which I can't even get to download on my Steam Deck, it was playing through it with zero stuttering, with no screen tearing or issues, and just cutting right through a game that has really excellent graphic quality. Now the display itself is 10.95 inches. It's an LTPS screen with a resolution of 2560 by 1600, so a 16 by 10 ratio, and it has 120 hertz refresh rate, so the specs are a little bit worse than the hybrid gaming handheld that I just showed you a second ago, but still, this thing feels much more comfortable when you're playing, not only because it's wider and further apart, but because it actually has those controller handles with joysticks that feel much more like a controller. But here you can see that the handles slide right off. It's almost like a Joy-Con, but it doesn't work by itself as its own separate controller. You still have to connect them with a bridge in the middle in order to keep playing with them. So it doesn't work quite the same as like the Lenovo Legion Go or like the Nintendo Switch, obviously. Now on the internal side of this, it also has room for an upgradable M.2 2280 SSD, and you can upgrade it up to 4 terabytes, which I think is fantastic. And the screen also is touchscreen, which is really nice. And it comes pre-installed with Windows 11, so it does not have its own operating system. So you should be able to download whatever gaming softwares that you need to on there, or platforms or launchers. And then last, OneXPlayer also had their X1 Mini on display, which I think is a really awesome device that should get more attention. Not for me specifically, because I think it's a little too small for my hands, but you still get that excellent controller feel with the power of the larger model. Now it has an AMD Ryzen 5 processor with an AMD Radeon 760 GPU, so it's going to be a little bit weaker in terms of performance, but you still have the opportunity to get either 32 or 64 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM with a 7500 megahertz transfer rate, which is the exact same as the larger player. So it too was also cutting through this game like it was absolutely nothing, and it wasn't Black Myth Wukong. I believe this was Sekiro. I didn't realize that it actually had a tilt function where you could look at it vertically as well. but this thing was really powerful for its size, and it still has the room to upgrade to a 4TB M.2 2280 SSD. The screen size on it is 8.4 inches with a resolution of 2560 by 1600, so same aspect ratio as a larger screen, except it's going to be a bit more condensed, so it actually might even look a little bit better on camera, and it has the 144 Hz refresh rate, so it is actually even a little bit better. So they're going to need to work on their bigger device if it's going to be worth it. But it also came pre-installed with Windows 11 and had most of the inputs and everything that you would need on a handheld device, so I won't go through the list of those, but 3 very solid offerings from OnexPlayer. Would love to know which one was your favorite. Okay, so that was the OneXPlayer lineup. I'd love to know what you think of how diverse their devices are. And those are really kind of the big 3 for me specifically in terms of gaming handhelds that I wanted to check out. There is so much that I probably missed at CES, but these were the ones that I thought the Freaky Tech fam needed to know about. Now, I do want to give an honorable mention to Genki. If you've never heard of Genki, they are a up-and-coming gaming handheld accessory company that's doing some really cool things, and they actually sent home this Moonbase power outlet that has USB outputs that go up to 140 watts right here, so check out Genki in the description down below. This is a really awesome thing that they sent me home with, and one really cool thing that they showed me while I was there talking to them is that they had 3D printed Joy-Cons for the Nintendo Switch 2. So they actually already had models for it, and a lot of these companies at CES, it was rumored, but I didn't know it was for sure until I spoke with Genki, they actually showcased what the Joy-Cons are going to look like for the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's not that crazy different from what we've already seen. They're just bigger, which is a huge win, right? Because the original Joy-Cons for the Switch are way too small, but shout out to Genki for showing me that. As you can see some footage right here, this is what they're going to look like, and as we know, the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be announced any day now from what we're anticipating. There's so much third-party manufacturing going on for their products that it was like something has got to give. So definitely subscribe to the channel, because whenever the Switch 2 arrives, I am going to get that as fast as possible, and you'll get a review from me. But thank you so much for watching. It was an absolute pleasure being at CES this year, and I appreciate you being along for the journey. I've got a few more videos from CES coverage that are going to be coming out over the next few days, so definitely subscribe, stay tuned, so you can see when those come out. But I really appreciate you stopping by today and spending some time with me. Again, I'm Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews. I'll see you next time. So real quick before you go, YouTube thinks that you might like this video or this video, so if you want to keep exploring the channel, then be sure to check those out. Have a good one.